What's going on? What's going on, everybody? This is James Bush, your manversationist. Today I have a special guest, man. I've been trying to get this guy, man, for about a month now. We've got Ben Calixte from Therapy for Black Men. Ben, come on in here and bless the mic.
Thank you. I'd like to say hi to your listening audience. Thank you for having me. Excited to get it going, to jump into these topics.
Man, definitely. Therapy for Black Men. I mean, you just say that out loud. And over the last 30 or 40 years, it's amazing how now that becomes more probable. It is something that people are more open to, Black men going to therapy. I mean, Ben, the vision, tell me about it. How did all this stuff get started?
Well, basically just kind of looking at social media platforms, not seeing anything that was dedicated and to our kings. It was something that I was like, what's going on? I mean, we know that we have that stigma in our community through whatever pop culture, on how we were brought up, the conditioning and that. So I know that played into it, and it's just something that I said, why not just create it? So this way they can have a place that they can convene and have a dialogue and talk about and become vulnerable, having that vulnerability, which is very important because we're taught otherwise. As you know, being a therapist is something that, as males, especially Black males, it's something that's hard for them to be able to get to a space where they can feel comfortable. So I want to create that space where they can share their experience with other kings who are possibly going through the same things.
Gotcha, man. That's awesome. So tell me this, what are some things that you've noticed as you started this project? I mean, you put it out there, people started to take notice, guys started to come get interested. What are some of the strategies or tools that you guys use to get brothers to come into therapy?
Well, first it was basically started to as a collective to get the therapists to be able to come on board. So this way, brothers who are looking, or kings who are looking for any services, will be able to see someone who they can identify with.
Right. Okay.
That was one of the things, so they could have that relatability. And then secondly, it was one of the things that they were getting past that stigma that, hey man, it's okay, I'm not the only one that's going through this. And actually, as they're getting the education on finding out about what gaslighting is, to be able to identify, like, oh man, wait a minute, I'm going through that. I never knew what that was. So those are just kind of those little barriers, small steps where they're making little breakthroughs.
I mean, and that's awesome, because I think for so long in our society, we're taught that therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, they all look like Yoda. or they look like Freud. I mean, some Caucasian guy, probably bald with a big mustache, that sits back in a chair and just maybe talks to you, maybe judges you. And I know, brothers, we really ain't going for that too much.
Agreed.
And so, and I like how you said relatability. And I think that's a lot, even as a therapist myself. I went to school, I learned it, but there's a lot of stuff in school that I've learned that I don't even use when it comes to doing therapy, practicing my craft, practicing the art. Because it's more about, relating with different individuals and creating that unconditional positive regard, that congruence, that therapeutic, rapport with them.
Yes.
Those things I think are very key, especially when you have individuals who have come through very, very huge barriers just to get into your office.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
And so I think that is very important. And like you said, also just translating. What is gaslighting?
Yes.
What is adulting?
Yes.
I think that's very important as well too, because now it just brings the linkage. Now I don't feel like I'm isolated. Now I feel like I'm a part of society right now as well too.
Absolutely.
I think that's very important. So I'm gonna kudos to y'all. Why is therapy for Black men very important in this day and age, as we see it?
I think it's one of the things where, ironically, we haven't been able to control our own narrative.
Okay.
I mean, our men are depicted, usually in the depiction, it's a negative connotation.
Okay.
And we could, speak to us because it's you and I. We look like everyone else, and we know we can connect. We understand what we're going through. So the fact is that we're more than what they want to try to describe us to be. So when we think that, it's empowering when you shape that narrative that we're fathers, we're sons, we're whatever professional you want to name, that's what we are. We're more to it than that in our community. And the fact is that we're not criminals or and drug dealers and things that have been generated and propagated through pop culture. There has to be a deeper substance, and we want to let our kings know that, listen, you're anything that you want to be because you have that gift, you have that talent.
Wait a minute, Ben. So you mean to tell me that we don't all walk around with jerry curls and with a red candy lollipop in our mouth, man, directing vast amounts of women across the highways and byways?
Yeah, you see, I mean, and obviously we could laugh at that because we know that could be some satire, but that stuff gets propagated a lot.
Yeah.
And for our brothers and sisters who don't understand, that's something that outside of our community, that becomes that stereotypical lens that people view us through.
Right.
When we're able to kind of like, listen, man, that's that coonery or whatever else you want to call it, we know that there's deeper levels to us. And, that's one of the things why, in terms of with the information to be able to share with our brothers, it's an education. Not everyone has the means to be able to seek therapy. Not everyone has, as the therapist, sometimes you sit down and have a consultation. Do you have a sliding scale? Do you have this? Yeah. Because we know, I mean, and we understand on the other side that you went to school to learn your craft, and that wasn't cheap. So we want to try to marry the two together, that brothers who are seeking therapy, who recognize that acknowledgement, what, I need to find a therapist, make it something that is just streamlined for them, and hopefully get it so they can be able to match up with someone where they could be able to get that best, a skilled, trained clinician.
Definitely. So, I mean, and of course, man, and once again, ladies and gentlemen, I have been on Calixte from Therapy for Black Men. Now, what has it been like through this whole COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, it's almost like we've been in the twilight zone.
Wow.
Right? It's kind of one of those things, but we know that it doesn't stop there with us, because we had these, in terms of with George Floyd and things that cropped up, but that's always been, right? It hasn't been new for you or I.
Right.
There's something that, because right, you kind of look at it like, okay, why is this, in terms of, and we were grieving already, I think, collectively as a community, as a world, it's transpiring because people are losing loved ones, fathers, brothers, and sisters. So that was hard in itself, and then this was something that kind of exacerbated that, because we were mostly home. We weren't really distracted from our day-to-day going to work, because now we were just really confined, and people who are working from home. So now they got to be able to sit and kind of see like, oh snap, like there's more to it. Like this is what's going on, where although you and I know that nothing's changed, it's just, another incident that happened. But this is why people just got to really sit back and say, oh wow, like let me take notice, man, this is really affecting us. And you could hear, I could view, or rather read that through on our IG, the comments. It was hitting a lot of our kings very hard.
It's amazing you said that, because I remember when the 2008 financial crisis hit, and it was one of those things where a lot of brothers and sisters that I ran into, they're like, what financial crisis? we've been in one for a while. It's like, you know, and you had the news and the media that would show people on Wall Street that were people of a lighter hue that didn't look nothing like us, carrying boxes and walking out, you know, down the street, and, you know, just so terrified about what was about to happen or what was going on. And for us, we were just like, it's Tuesday. It's Wednesday. It's like, well, we've got to do this, we've got to do that. You know, we've been in these situations before. The interesting thing about that is that when you have a culture that is used to the dysfunction of things not going their way, of things not being properly laid out or supplied for them as they are for others, I think, man, that is just one. It shows the power of resilience, but it also, man, it just shows the crudiness, man, of the society, man, we're living in right now.
Agree.
And so now it's like, okay, we're in this state where we have COVID-19, we have the George Floyd situation, and I don't know about some of your therapists or somebody, but when people come in to my office, we talk, we glance over the, you know, popular ideas of what happened or what didn't happen, and then we move on because it's just what we're used to, unfortunately.
Absolutely. I mean, in many ways, some of the stuff we unfortunately could have be desensitized to it.
Yes.
And you know, that's tragic in a sense. You know, obviously,
right.
Each and every incident can touch you differently and affect you differently, just along where you're going. And if speaking on that, I remember in recent years the Tamir Rice incident.
Right.
Really affected me. Just a young, and it's something that I preface this by, I don't watch any of those when they have it on YouTube or what have you, showing the incident. It's something that I can't watch because it's not something that we're watching a movie. It's not a TV show where it's a fictional character or what have you. This is someone who was really walking the earth with us. And they're no longer here. So I don't watch that. But what happened is, through like tapping on the thumbnail, I didn't know what I was watching. It didn't have any audio. It happened to be that incident.
Right.
And I was having nightmares, and it just really sunk home, obviously having a son, because he was, I believe at the time, he was 12 or what have you. But you just see, and you just know, to understand as a Black male, the vitriol that they have for us.
Yes.
And you know that if we get into having that discussion with your child or your children on how you have to be able to navigate and move around in this society, because we have to move differently. We can't do certain things because the scrutiny that we receive, it's a little bit different. I mean, we know this, but this is what it is. So,
man. Ladies and gentlemen, I have Benjamin Calixte, you know, from Therapy for Black Men. Now, Ben, let me ask you this. You work with a lot of brothers. Now I got to ask you, what is something that maybe they wish sisters knew about them? Because you see a lot of them at their most vulnerable moments, you know, places that they're not willing to show outwardly in the public, because, you know, the title or the cliche was never let them see you sweat. But there's something that we are missing, or there's something that we need to kind of like begin to, you know, communicate to one another, especially in moments like this when there's just mass chaos.
I think you touched on it. It's being able to be vulnerable. I guess, you know, in terms of, if you have a good group core of friends that you came up with, and they're your trusted confidants, you could have that exchange, but not everybody has a good, solid core friend.
Okay.
Or group, rather. And ultimately, if they could be able to have their partner, that they could be able to open up to them, because they might have had that betrayal in their life. And that's something that they're not going to be eager, or they'd rather be more reluctant to share that because they don't want to be betrayed again.
Wow.
So, and as a therapist, you understand. I mean, kind of going down that vein. It's like, well, I don't want to open up too much because there probably been self abandonment issues
Yeah.
and things of that nature, and they just don't want to rehash that. So they kind of are more closed off, and that could be something that really played when they were younger, some due to a trauma or being betrayed or what have you. So I think it's really that being able to be vulnerable with their partner is a big one.
Is that something that we work on over time to kind of help build those bridges and build that trust? Is that something that, is out there, or, I mean, what helps that to build that rapport from your
Yeah, I think
perspective?
when you're becoming a student of self, it's something that we
Okay.
definitely discuss on Therapy for Black Men on our IG page. Is that understanding, having that self-awareness. We
Mhm.
have to really know ourselves first.
Right.
So this way we could be able to, love ourselves, so we could share that love that we have with others.
Right.
And that's where it becomes, where now it's healthy, because
Mhm.
I'm not looking for you or looking for a female to make me happy.
Yeah, exactly. Man, you said
I'm
something right there. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
So it's like, that's an inside job. Making me happy
Yes,
has to
sir.
start with me. I
Yes,
can't,
sir.
because you know how it is. If we're talking, yeah, I'm with this girl, and she's gonna make me happy. No,
Nah.
we need to be happy already, and then we can share that. So that's that really
Exactly.
kind of delicate balance, so we can be healthy, and this way we can have a healthy relationship with someone else. But
Uh,
first, we have to do that work first.
it's funny you said it, because one of the things I like to use, or the illustrations, is that the party initially should start with you.
Mhm.
You are the party. And
Right.
so if someone is coming in your space or in your presence, they should add to the party. They shouldn't make it themselves, because if they make it, then when they leave, they'll take it with them as well. They'll take that fun, they'll take that joy, they'll take that excitement. And then sometimes you'll be lost if you're not careful. And so the party should start with you.
I
And
love, I
it
love it.
it's amazing, because it goes back to what you're saying, being self-aware. What do I like? Who am I? Just like I tell brothers, I tell sisters as well too. Date yourself. Go out, find out what are some of those things that excite you. You have to know that primarily. But if you don't know that, then you will fall into those lines where you are looking for other individuals
Yes,
to
yes,
kind of define that for you. Well,
yes.
maybe I like this, or maybe I like that, or maybe, and then
Mm,
you all over the place.
absolutely. Absolutely. Agree.
And it's unfortunate, because you got good brothers, you've
Yes.
got some possibly decent situations, and not necessarily in a romantic sense, but into the spot where it's a ally
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
are somewhat broken by foolishness.
Yes. Yes.
It's
Yeah.
unfortunate like that, man.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think you could attest to this as a therapist. A lot of what's happening in terms of with people walking into your office is really a lot of childhood traumas that we're trying to mend or undo
Right.
through the parenting,
Yep.
because of the trauma that our parents were
Yeah.
dealing with. So obviously we've come to a point in our society where we're more educated about these circumstances, about our emotions and things and matters of the heart. But a lot of that has to do with how that was passed down to us, on how we view the love, whether we came up in a two-parent household. It
Right.
was, even though was that a healthy household?
Oh,
Was it, even if it was a single household, they could have been loved, but was it a healthy household? So these are all the things that placate to how that child is going to be socially, emotionally, how they're going to interact, how they view certain things, because it's a conditioning. You've been conditioned, and when you step into and have a session with a therapist such as James here, there's a lot of reprogramming, because it's all of this like, well, I never looked at it this way. You get them to see things through a different lens, to a different perspective. So
it's amazing you just mentioned that, because, and you mentioned single parenthood. because, and you mentioned childhood development, parenting. Because what I found is within the last maybe 30 or 40 odd years or so, I would rather guess that, the amount of divorces and broken marriages and children that didn't have a two-parent household has somewhat astronomically risen, and some of that is because of the legal um, structures that have been put in place or so, and a lot of other things. But now we have the product. The product is the children, uh, who are in the Xers, the millennials, the Zers, and whoever else.
Yeah.
And so then now you have the older generation, where sometimes they're looking at the younger generation as, this is a moist nation. And I'm thinking to myself, well, wait a minute. You were the precursor to a
Yeah.
lot of this.
Yes.
There's a lack of understanding. There's also too, and I'm going to get to my point right now, is that understanding when having emotions is not such a bad thing, because in the other generations, I mean, when I'm working with brothers who are 50 and 60 years old, and they're saying empathy. What is empathy? It's just like, I don't know what that shit is. And I'm like, oh damn, here we go. So
Yeah.
it's about, where is the bridge? Where is the connection? I mean, what do we do with when we're encountering things along those lines?
I mean, I think one thing is to just understand that there's a generational gap.
Got you.
A lot of what our parents endured, although they can express it to us, we'll never experience that
That's true.
necessarily,
That is
right?
true.
If we kind of go further back to our grandparents or great grandparents in terms of what, in terms of how it was here, the
Right.
culture,
Yes.
that was just, so there's a lot where they had to kind of be stoic and just kind of go about their business because it
Right.
was kind of viewed as, listen, I got to keep my head down so I could provide for you. I don't have that
Right.
time to give you that hug and tell you that I love you. I'm
Wow.
providing. So, and we know that's something that's been passed down. So when we kind of get that here now and understand on why someone is not able to show empathy or be sympathetic, we bring it right back to their parents.
True.
Did they have that example at home? Did they see that from their father? Did their father embrace them, give them a hug? I
Right.
love you. Or did they? What was that? Was it a abusive relationship that they had? I mean, these are the things that really come because we know we bring our past experiences with us into our relationships, and whether it's with when you're boys or a female, it
Hmm.
doesn't have to be the opposite gender. It's just basically what your upbringing was. That's something that you will carry with you, and we hopefully can understand that maybe I need to see someone. I do need to see a therapist where I can unpack that in a healthy, constructive way to help me work through what my issues are. But it's first to recognize that. That's really the biggest step. That's where the courage is. And to be vulnerable enough to sit down, because I'm sure you had people sit in your office where you're just like, he's holding back. There's something he's not telling me. And when he does feel comfortable enough, he
Yeah.
expresses that there's a breakthrough. You're like,
Yeah.
man, it's a weight lifted off his shoulder but you have to get there.
I mean, yeah, I definitely believe that. Again, it's along the lines of trust. Also, too, it goes back to what you said before. Um, you have great granddad, they had a depression, and then you had mom, she had the civil rights era,
Yes,
and dad, mom and dad had the civil rights era, and then here you are, plopped down here, right,
yes,
smack in the middle of it.
yeah,
And so, a lot of things weren't taught to you, and I
yeah,
guess we're in maybe what first wave ish of African American males, that is, really consuming therapy and really
yeah,
giving it an opportunity.
yeah,
And so it'll be amazing to see within maybe the next 20 or 30 some odd years, what is the product or the outcomes of us beginning these kind of conversations.
absolutely.
It'll be amazing to see if we're able to still uh, be more in touch with ourselves,
Mhm.
um, have that self awareness, and also be better partners,
Yeah,
to our
yeah,
partner. I mean,
yeah,
I would definitely like to see that. I would definitely like to see from a numbers perspective. What does all that mean? Does it mean that we marry less? Does it mean we marry more? Does it mean that we what to the point that we wait longer? to get married, or we don't wait. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how all this stuff plays out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that we kind of I like to really believe is that as a male, it's something I say you have to protect your seed.
Okay.
And really what that means, it's when you sit down and obviously formalize a relationship with someone, there's certain criterias where the compatibility to understand that that person who you will lay with can potentially be the mother of your child.
True.
And it's very powerful because is that going to be a household that is going to be nurturing to the child? Are you going to be able to grow with that person? Or is it something that is just you want to kind of have this, something on the side, but not really be in this child's life if you do have a child with this person? And are they someone who has parenting skills? Are they maternal? Because there's no book on that, but you understand. Are we a match? Because we know that this is what really is a cyclic cycle.
Yeah.
You have a child. Are you going to be? You can father a child, but are you going to be a dad? Are you going to be there day out and day out? And that's just something in terms of just for food for thought, in terms of certain circumstances, because we all been there. We've been at one time younger. And not with a care in the world, but we know that our actions have consequences, and we need to really be accountable for that. So this way we can try to give back and build up our community, as opposed to just like having 3, 4, 5 kids and not really caring for them in that sense. That's important.
Definitely. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, we have Ben Calixte from Therapy for Black Men. Ben, one of my last questions I got for you.
Okay.
I got a loved one who's a male. I know he needs therapy. I know he needs to talk to somebody. How or what are some of the strategies that I could use or do to help him get in to see somebody like you guys?
Well, I think one of the things is that plug them through to a page, a resource. There are other resources out there aside from Therapy for Black Men, which is a good thing, because the more resources, the better.
Exactly.
Also, when you could, in terms of just with the discussions with your cousin, to find out what he would be in terms of the better situation for him. Would it be a one-on-one with a therapist, or maybe in a support group setting?
Right.
To maybe hear other males who have a shared experience, and have them identify what that is, because a lot of times our kings don't understand what it is that they're going through, what they're grieving, what the trauma was. But when they're able to identify that, that's where the empowerment comes, because it's no longer you being blind in the darkness. Now you have maybe a flashlight, so you can kind of see as you're being able to navigate. And the one of the most empowering things about therapy is that you're equipping them with tools for them to be able to use in life. And it's almost like a trade. It's like you get this tool today, you get another one the next session, so forth, so until you have a whole toolbox. So now you can be able to, when you are in a situation, you can navigate. It's no longer in just in ignorance. You're educated now, so you can just rely on. Wait, I know what this is. I can identify it, and I no longer have to be hindered by it anymore.
Man, definitely, that's awesome. Ben, tell us where we can find you guys at. How can we locate? What are the resources? What are the pigeons, the websites, the Instagram?
Yeah, let me. So I'm gonna get my phone, because Therapy for Black Men. .org. That's our resource page.
Okay.
Which is, we have that's the collection of therapists who are there, and what basically people are joining, trying to grow that, so we could represent each state. When anyone needs any services, they can just basically hop on to that. We also have a resource page within that, so this way we can, be able to see what other resources they need to provide if they want to share a story so other kings can read that and see. We also have our IG page, which is Therapy for Black Men, but it's BLKMEN,
Cool.
which is on our IG page. And the IG page is really a great resource because it allows people to just hop on there, and we can post something, they can comment on that. And one of my big things is that you don't have to agree with what we comment, because I believe in constructive criticism, or because we can grow. But the fact is that we post something and you share where other people could just kind of chime in and have that dialogue, which is a powerful thing to see the kings discussing with one another, uplifting one another, embracing one another, supporting one another. You know, those are the things we want to really kind of continue to facilitate.
Man, well, I'm thankful for you guys. I love it. I love it. I love it, man, how you put it out there. The kings, the kings, the kings, the kings. I think it's just so powerful when you just continue to put that in the atmosphere, even though sometimes it doesn't necessarily resemble what the reality that you want it to be. But it's like, you're still a king, you know, regardless of what they say, sometimes how you feel or you don't feel, you're still a king. Your identity is still there. It's in your DNA. And so I love how y'all continue to bring that out.
I appreciate that. And we want to know that we actually want people to understand that it's a culture. It's not a color. It's a movement.
Right.
We know that obviously people want to identify whether I'm Black, but it's a culture. This is something in our community to help grow and help support our kings, because we know in terms of when, as a male, being identified as the head of the household, we know that's a very important role.
Definitely.
To be able to set that example for our kids, for other people in our community. And we want to just always just let them know, listen, we're here to support you. Ultimately, we know that each and every one of our kings, you matter. And the fact is that it's nothing when you see and turn on the TV and see something that's happening to someone else, even though that might not be a family member per se, it feels like it's a family member.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's one of the things where you feel that, like, man, so we just want to collectively just be supportive of all our kings, and that's where you can find us.
Appreciate that. Ben, man, I got to run, but dude, man, definitely, man, want to be in continuous contact with you. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Benjamin Calixte from Therapy for Black Men. What's burning on the bushes next?